Well, I think actually equality, diversity and inclusion are the basis of good teaching. Because what you're doing when you take those factors into account is you're actually catering for individual learners and making sure that you meet them on their particular bases. Each individual learner will have their own experience. They'll know what they know, and will be very useful actually for you as a teacher to make use of that. And of course, it's one way to motivate them, it's one way to include them in the whole learning experience, and it produces a synergy. It enables you as a teacher to get something back from the learners, which develops. I mean, it gathers momentum, and what you'll find, I think, is that if you have a problem as a teacher engaging your learners, that once you get one or two, a small group of learners involved, that the others will follow. Because actually, learners learn as much from each other as they do from the tutor, and in some cases, even more. So as far as I see it, equality, diversity, and inclusion are the absolute essentials of good teaching. It's not about politics. It's not about doing things the way they're supposed to be done, if you like. It's actually about meeting the individual requirements of all your learners, not leaving anyone out in the cold. Well, again, I think that the important thing about session plans is that they should meet not only the requirements of the teacher. They're not just being written for the teacher and the head of department, which is frequently the case, but they should actually ensure that the teacher is meeting all the needs of the learners. And I think it helps for a teacher to think through very carefully what they're doing before they enter any classroom. However experienced you are, you do need to plan your sessions carefully, and you need to suit each session, of course, to the learners you've got. I mean, you might have a generic session plan, but you won't get generic students. Each class that you meet is different, and it's useful, of course, to have a session plan which you can use with different groups of learners. But once again, in the same way as you need to ensure that learners contribute in each class, you need to make sure that you are doing the best you can for your learners. And that means evaluating each session, of course, as you go, and making sure that each time you do that session, that it can be done as well as you possibly can for those learners. And I think probably the most important dimension to all of this is getting feedback from learners. Because as a teacher, I found that some of my best ideas have come from learners. They haven't come from my experience necessarily. They haven't come even from other teachers, because actually it's not always so easily transferable. But learners will tell you honestly, especially of course if you've got a good relationship with them, what they thought of your lesson afterwards. And certainly at the end of a teaching term, I think it's essential to get proper feedback from learners. Differentiation we've just been talking about is really about providing different learning experiences for individual learners. I mean, it's actually part of EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion. And I think the essence of it all is to make your sessions learner-centered, as we call it, and to make sure that there's a variety of teaching, a variety of learning styles. Because when you think about it, when you think about your own learning experiences, you don't really want to be sitting in a classroom doing the same thing for half an hour or even an hour. I mean, I've been observing sessions where learners have basically been doing one, sometimes only two tasks in a whole hour. And when you think about the various studies which have shown you that your concentration peaks, you know, within a 10-minute period, And from thereafter, it declines remarkably until after about 20 minutes to half an hour, you're not learning optimally. So differentiation means, I suppose, making sure that individual learners learn in styles which are appropriate for them individually. And also, of course, that you take account of their experience, that you take account of their differing abilities, you take account of their skills, you take account of their cultural background. So that's where the EDI comes in. And of course, the ways in which they learn. A mini talk can be very useful, and we have it on days like today. But again, if it goes beyond 10 to 15 minutes, especially if we're talking about 14 to 19-year-olds or even adults, it becomes less and less useful. So what we need to do is to ensure that there are different types of learning experience, that you get 10 to 15 minutes, ensuring that learners take notes and, if necessary, of course, working with other learners, either helping them or learners who are of a similar level. And then, of course, that you provide different opportunities, such as pair work, but not just work which is done by pairs, but work which is suitable for working in pairs. I mean, that's another problem that you find, is that some teachers plan for pair work without actually assessing whether that task is appropriate to pair work. So if that doesn't work, then you're losing that particular opportunity. And again, group work, you can have small and large group work, and you can have feedback, from which, of course, learners can learn as much as they can from listening to an expert teacher. So differentiation really consists, I think, largely in making learning interesting, making it varied, and having the fullest possible impact that you can have within your limited time.